The hills of Coldwater Ridge hid many secrets, but none darker than the tale of the Merrill clan. For generations, they lived isolated from the world, guarding their land and their bloodline with fierce stubbornness. Outsiders whispered that their loyalty to family had crossed a dangerous line, binding them to traditions that should have died long ago. Over time, strange illnesses spread through their lineage, twisting limbs and weakening bodies, transforming the once respected clan into a feared and tragic mystery. The story begins with Elias Merrill, the clan patriarch known for his rigid beliefs. He insisted purity protected the family, claiming outsiders brought misfortune. His voice carried authority, shaping the thoughts of every child born in the wooden cabins scattered along the ridge. As decades passed, marriages occurred only within the clan, creating a closed circle that grew smaller and more fragile. The consequences emerged slowly, first in whispers, then unmistakable signs written on the bodies of the young. Among these children were two brothers, Jonah and Silas, born with twisted limbs that bent at unnatural angles. While their minds were sharp, their bodies fought them with every step. Villagers from the nearest town would occasionally glimpse them limping through the forest, their silhouettes strange against the sunlight. Though some felt pity, most avoided them, fearing the curse said to cling to the Merrill bloodline. The brothers grew up believing the world beyond the ridge was their enemy. Inside the clan, the elders shielded them from outside judgment but ignored the root of their suffering. Jonas and Silas spent their days learning family lore, listening to stories of ancestors who vowed never to mix with newcomers. These tales, meant to instill pride, only filled the brothers with quiet confusion. Why did loyalty demand such pain? Why should a family shrink into itself until its own branches broke under the weight of tradition? Questions swirled, but the answers were buried under generations of silence. Their mother, Lyra, held secret doubts. She watched her son struggle, tears hidden behind forced smiles. She longed to seek help beyond the ridge, but Elias forbade it, warning that outsiders would take her children away. Lyra's heart ached every time she helped Jonah stand or lifted Silas when his legs failed. She carried the burden of guilt, not for something she did, but for a legacy forced upon her by elders who refused to face the truth. As the brothers grew older, they realized their illnesses were not isolated incidents. Cousins had weakened eyesight, others battled unexplainable tremors, and some died before reaching adulthood. Still, the elders insisted it was fate, not consequence. Jonah, the more curious of the two, secretly collected the clan's genealogy records, tracing connections that no one dared mention. What he found shook him, the branches of the family tree folded back on themselves repeatedly. Silas tried to dissuade Jonah, fearing punishment, but curiosity had become necessity. Jonah believed the clan was collapsing because it refused to change. The brothers often spoke late into the night, whispering about the outside world they had never seen. Silas dreamed of mountains beyond Coldwater Ridge, roads stretching like arteries to distant places. Jonah dreamed of answers. Together, they began questioning their heritage in ways no Merrill had dared. Tension grew in the clan as more children were born with deformities. The elders tightened their control, preaching unity and warning that judgment lay outside the ridge's boundaries. Elias, now old and frail, clung to his doctrines with desperation. He insisted the clan was chosen by destiny, that suffering was proof of divine uniqueness. Yet fear showed in his eyes when he looked at Jonah and Silas, as though the brothers embodied the clan's crumbling foundation. One stormy evening, a traveling physician named Drive, Rowan sought shelter near the ridge. While tending a sprained ankle, he noticed peculiar carvings marking the trees, symbols of the Merrill clan. Intrigued by tales he had heard in nearby towns, he followed a narrow trail deeper into the woods, unaware that he was stepping into forbidden territory. His arrival would become the spark that ignited a long-buried truth. Jonah encountered Drive, Rowan first, startled by the stranger's presence yet fascinated by his calm demeanor. The physician listened to Jonah describe the clan's history, carefully noting the patterns of illness. Silas watched nervously from behind the tree. The brothers realized the truth they had suspected all along: the curse was not mystical but scientific. They begged Rowan for help, but he warned that the clan would reject him. Still, he offered solutions: education, new alliances, and gradual integration with nearby communities. Jonah's heart raced with possibility, but Silas felt dread. Bringing such ideas to the elders meant risking exile or worse. When Jonah approached the council, their reaction was explosive. Elders pounded their staffs, accusing him of betrayal. Elias's voice trembled as he called Jonah poisoned by outsiders. Silas stood beside his brother, trembling yet resolute. The elders banished Rowan and confined the brothers to their cabin, hoping to silence their influence. But isolation only strengthened their resolve. They felt the weight of every ancestor who had suffered in silence, and they refused to continue the cycle. Days turned into weeks as disease spread rapidly among younger clan members. What once seemed like isolated deformities now appeared as a widespread collapse. Children struggled to walk. Teenagers suffered seizures. Infants were born frail and breathless. Even the elders could no longer deny what was happening. Panic filled the ridge, and the once proud Merrill clan was forced to face a truth they had avoided for generations. Jonah and Silas were released in desperation, summoned by an elder who whispered that perhaps their ideas held value. The brothers, though shocked, didn't celebrate. They felt no victory in being proven right, only sorrow for the suffering that had unfolded. With Dr. Rowan waiting outside the ridge, they knew time was short. The clan needed drastic change, but change requires confronting the ghosts of the past. Elias resisted until the very end. His failing health made him cling even more tightly to tradition. When Jonah visited him, Elias stared at his grandson's twisted limbs and wept, realizing the curse had not been destiny, but denial. He confessed he had known the truth longer than anyone suspected. Decades earlier, a healer had warned him, but he had silenced her, believing fear kept the clan united. His confession shattered Jonah's heart. The brothers convinced the elders to meet Dr. Rowan at the Circle of Ancient Stones, where important decisions had always been made. Some clan members cried in relief, others trembled in suspicion. Dr. Rowan explained, with calm compassion, the damage isolation had caused and the steps required to heal. He spoke not with judgment but with hope, offering a future free from fear. For the first time in generations, the clan listened. The healing process began with education. Rowan taught the clan about genetics, diversity, and the importance of marrying outside one's own limited bloodline. Jonah and Silas became his assistants, guiding families through difficult conversations. They encouraged young members to travel to nearby towns, making connections that had once been forbidden. Some resisted, but most recognized that the old ways had nearly destroyed them. Silas struggled emotionally during this period. Though he believed in change, he felt burdened by guilt for being a symbol of the clan's mistakes, guilt for his limitations, guilt for wishing he had been born in another time. Jonah reassured him constantly, insisting that their suffering had meaning if it prevented future generations from facing the same fate. Silas learned to accept that even a broken branch can spark new growth. As the clan opened itself to the world, life gradually returned to the ridge. Doctors visited monthly, researchers studied the Merrill lineage with permission, and children began to grow healthier. But healing wasn't only physical. Emotional wounds ran deep within the clan. Many felt betrayed by elders who had allowed suffering to spread in the name of pride. Yet forgiveness slowly replaced anger as the clan recognized the weight of generational ignorance. Elias passed away during the first winter of change. His final words urged the clan to seek truth, even when it challenged their beliefs. Jonah and Silas buried him beneath the oldest oak, not as a symbol of stubborn tradition, but as a reminder that even flawed leaders can leave behind lessons. His death marked the end of the old era, allowing the clan to step forward without chains. The ridge transformed as outsiders began visiting freely. Trade routes brought new ideas, new customs, and new faces. Children who once played in silence now laughed openly, unaware of the darkness their ancestors endured. Jonah and Silas, though physically weakened, felt stronger than ever as they watched the clan evolve. They had become bridges between past and future, imperfect but unyielding. But not everything transitioned smoothly. Some distant relatives attempted to form a splinter group, believing the clan had abandoned its sacred roots. They retreated deeper into the mountains, clinging to old doctrines. Jonah warned that their path only repeated history, but he also knew forcing them would only create resentment. The clan allowed them to leave, hoping they would someday return seeking light instead of fear. Jonah began writing a comprehensive journal documenting the clan's transformation. He recorded stories of suffering, courage, and redemption, hoping future generations would never repeat the same mistakes. Silas contributed his own reflections, describing the emotional toll of growing up with inherited deformities. Their writings would later become the foundational text of the clan's new identity. Dr. Rowan was honored as a guardian of the ridge. Without his intervention, the clan might have vanished entirely. He often reminded them that healing is not a single act but a lifelong process. He urged the clan to continue learning, adapting, and embracing diversity. His presence became a symbol of the world the Merrills had once feared but now welcomed with open hearts. Years passed, and new generations of Merrills were born, strong, healthy, and full of curiosity. For the first time in centuries, children ran through the forest without pain, their limbs straight and bodies vigorous. Jonah and Silas, though physically limited, took pride in knowing they had helped break a generational cycle. Their suffering had not been in vain. Silas eventually left the ridge to study biology, determined to understand the science behind their past. Though walking remained difficult, he traveled using special braces and limitless determination. He returned years later as a scholar, teaching young clan members about genetics and resilience. His presence proved that one's beginnings do not dictate one's destiny. Jonah, unable to travel as widely, became the clan's chief historian. He preserved memories, interviewed elders, and ensured every lesson was passed on. His words helped the clan face its past without shame, acknowledging pain while celebrating survival. He also ensured that outsiders understood the Merrills not as monsters or curiosities but as human beings shaped by generations of misguided choices. The clan held an annual remembrance ceremony, honoring those who suffered under the old ways. The brothers always stood at the front, hands clasped, understanding better than anyone what that suffering meant. The ceremony wasn't conducted in sorrow but in gratitude for the courage that allowed the clan to transform. It reminded everyone that healing begins with truth. In their final years, Jonah and Silas often sat on a cliff overlooking the valley, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold. They spoke about fear, tradition, and the strength it took to break both. Though their bodies remained twisted, their spirits had become powerful symbols of change. They had lived lives marked by pain, but also purpose that reshaped an entire bloodline. When the brothers passed away, the clan built a stone monument in their honor. It stood tall at the ridge's entrance, inscribed with the words, "From broken roots, new branches grow." Their story became a lesson shared in schools, homes, and gatherings, a reminder that families collapse when they close themselves off, but they rise when they confront truth with courage. And thus, the tale of the Merrill clan became a legacy of transformation, not tragedy.